Managing Director of Study Smart. To tell you a little about Study Smart, we are a consultancy firm and we guide students who want to study abroad, who want to look at master's courses, undergrad courses, or want to make a career abroad, right? What brings me here today is to give you a small little seminar on what are the kind of opportunities you'll have if you choose to do your master's abroad. What are the common questions students have? What is the process? Why you should consider studying abroad. We look at some of the top reasons as to why you should genuinely give studying abroad a chance, right? And towards the end, we will leave it open for question and answers. So if you have any specific questions, you can put it on the chat. I'll be happy to answer those questions. And after that, we do have some counselors of ours who will be doing one-to-one counseling as well. So those of you who want to take one-to-one counseling, there'll be a certain process for that as well, right? So on that note, let's get started. Before I start the session, I want to do a small icebreaker. I hope everybody participates in this. You can put things on chat, so food for thought. Tell me, when was the last time you did something for the first time in your life, right? So think about this and start putting your answers on chat if you can. When was the last time you did something for the first time in your life? I know it's a question that can, will make you think a lot, because it just makes us realize how boring our lives have become, especially in the lockdown. So yeah, if anybody would like to share something that they've done for the first time very recently, when was the last time you did something for the first time? You can raise your hands also and, answer this question, or you can put it on chat, whatever you're comfortable with. So Devendra, if anybody puts something on chat, just help me, just read it out maybe, because I'm not able to toggle the screens to see my chat.
Yes, sir.
Right? When was the last time you did something for the first time? Share. It could be a smallest of experience, like trying some new kind of cuisine. It could be something as simple as cooking for the first time. Any new experience that you've had that you've never had before. Feel free to share it with us. I promise nobody will laugh. Right. So maybe okay, started preparing for GRE. That's very good, Pranita. You're preparing for GRE, so that's a new experience, and hopefully that preparation and once you finish your course will lead to a lot many more new things that will happen in your life. So yeah, I want you to hold this thought, hold this question. When was the last time you did something for the first time? Hold that question in your mind and watch this small video that we're going to play for you. While you're seeing this video, I want you to keep asking yourself this question. When was the last time you did something for the first time? Devendra, can you please play the video? So someone said they started reading books. That's very good.
I study in a city that is home to over 100,000 international students from more than 200 countries. It's a global center for academic excellence with 4 universities in the world's top 40.
I study with the world's leading students and academics. The universities here have been involved in groundbreaking discoveries that are shaping modern life.
My favorite thing about this city is that wherever you walk, you will always discover something new.
I was able to choose from a huge variety of courses. The city is full of learning resources. My university is surrounded by over 120 libraries and 1,000 museums and galleries.
I study in a global financial center. The city is home to the world's largest business employers, and there are lots of part-time jobs, internships, and graduate schemes available.
I study in a city that is bursting with culture. With 100 cinemas, 350 live music venues, 5,000 restaurants, and 7,000 pubs and bars, all you need to do is find the perfect people to share it with.
I study in London.
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 Right. So what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you see your video? Would anybody like to share? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you see this video. And when you ask yourself, when was the last time you did something for the first time? Any thoughts? So yeah, I know I'm not very used to this webinar platform. I normally prefer addressing people physically, where I can see people's reactions and I can, make it more interactive. So I know on an online platform it's difficult, but please do share your thoughts. You can put it on a chat, or you can raise your hand and unmute yourself and talk. So the whole point of playing this video was to make you understand that one of the top reasons why students choose to study abroad is because of the experiences that they have. Every step, everywhere, you will have new experiences when you study abroad. And if after studying abroad for a year or living abroad for a few years, if I ask you this question, when was the last time you did something for the first time, you will have lots and lots of answers to give me. So one of the top reasons why you should consider doing your master's abroad is the exposure, is the experiences that you'll have, new kind of people you'll meet, new places you'll see. You will be able to take lots of Insta photos and post it on your Insta, because you'll keep having new experiences in life. And that is one of the most promising and rewarding part of studying abroad. And that is one primary reason why each of you should consider studying abroad. On that note, let's look at some of the top reasons why students are normally studying abroad, right? Devendra, can you move on to the next slide? Right, so you get easy access to top ranked universities. There are a handful of Indian universities that feature in the top 100. Forget top 100, very few that feature in the top 300 also, right? And obviously, to get through to those best institutes in India, like the IITs and the IMMs, you need to work so hard. The competition is so difficult that even with a 99%, sometimes you may not get a seat. That's not the case abroad. The competition is much lesser. So it's much easier for you to get into a good rank university. So even if you score about 65, 70% in your bachelor's, you can easily target universities which feature in the top 300 to 400 ranked universities, right? So you don't need to be a absolute scholar to be able to get through to good universities. Next. Right? What really stands out in foreign universities is the quality of facilities that they have, the infrastructure they have, the campus they have, right? The campuses are massive, spread over 50 to 150 acres, right from library to a gymnasium, to sports facilities, to a swimming pool, lab facilities, everything is on campus, right? So A, you have access to better facilities. B, you are learning on the latest technology, right? I'll give you a simple example. I don't know if somebody can answer this for me. When do you think the first 3D printer, I don't know how many of you know what a 3D printer is, but it's normally used by engineering students. Does anybody have an idea when the first printer, 3D printer, was introduced in an Indian university where students could use it for doing their practicals? Anybody wants to take a guess, or anybody has an idea on that? You can put it on chat. Take a wild guess. When do you think the first 3D printer was introduced in Indian universities? Well, I'll answer that for you since I'm not getting any answers. Oh, 3D printing is used in pharma too. I was not aware of that. That's fabulous. So then being pharma students, you should be able to answer that. Okay, we have 15, 16. Yeah, you're a little, yeah, you're kind of close, but not close enough. So yeah, since pharma students use 3D printers, which I was not aware of, it's good that you will understand what a 3D printer is and what applications it has. The first 3D printer was introduced in IIT Kanpur, right? And this was way back in 2011. It feels like way back, but it's very recent. 2011 is when an university could give access to a 3D printer to their students, right? Any guesses when did American and British universities got the first 3D printer which their students could use? It was way back in, no, not 1970s. No, I don't think 3D printing existed back then. So it was way back in 2002, right? So it almost took 9 to 10 years for the technology to reach and be accessible to Indian students. In fact, the first 3D printer that ever got introduced in India was probably in 2006 or 7, right? So it takes time for technology to reach India. So when you're studying in these foreign countries, you have access to the latest technology, and especially as pharma students, right? Technology matters a lot in terms of drug discovery, in terms of research, right? So you want to do latest research, which is applicable to the industry, then study on outdated curriculum and do things which are outdated, right? On that note, we'll play another small video for you. which will give you an idea of what kind of campuses these foreign universities have and what kind of facilities Indian students normally get, right? So have a look at this video as well. Devendra, if you can please play the video.
Yes, sir. Can you see the screen?
No, Devendra, can't see the video. We can see your this thing, what do you say, windows, like the folder we can see, and the file, we're not able to see the video. Unshare and reshare, I suggest.
1 minute. Now?
Yes. Good to go. Right. I hope you guys like that video. It is just to give you an idea of what kind of superior facilities these universities have. This was just one example of one university. There are over 300 such universities which have equally good infrastructure or even better infrastructure. If you can just move on to the next slide, Devendra. Right. So here, just wanted to give you a quick example of some of the examples of the kind of facilities these universities have, right? So there's a university that actually has an aircraft on the campus itself for the aeronautic and aerodynamic students. For mechanical and auto sports students, some universities actually have F1 cars which are assembled on the campus, right? Art students have proper art studios available for them. So the facilities that you have, and especially for pharma students, the research facilities that the universities have is going to play a major role, and it's going to be a major add-on when you compare them to Indian universities. Right, move on to the next slide. Another reason why a lot of students choose to study abroad is because of the variety of courses that are available. Again, this is where India lacks. We have very limited courses that we offer, very limited specializations that we offer. So at a master's level, you'll have very limited choices in India. But if you choose to study abroad, look at the variety of courses that are available to you, right? From manufacturing, quality control, pharmaceutical analysis, a combination of pharmaceutical and biotechnology, courses on drug discovery, clinical pharmacy, pharmaceutical business and technology. Again, this is becoming a very popular program where students, they've studied the technical side in their bachelor's of pharma and now want to study the business aspects of pharma industry. So there are courses which are related to business of pharmaceuticals, right? So again, the kind of varieties and opportunities you'll have in terms of courses are fabulous, and that is another reason why you should look at studying abroad. Next. The next slide, please. Right. Also, when you choose to study in these foreign countries, you get a very diverse set of students to study with. There are students from over 100 countries that come and study at these universities. So it's a truly international experience for you. You get to create a global network. You get to meet people from different cultures, different religions, and it really helps you to open up your mind to new ideas, right? So the international experience that you will have of getting to know other people from other community and other walks of life is again a very rewarding experience. Move next. You get amazing exposure, right? You get out of your comfort zone and you become independent. You get to explore yourselves. You're away from the cocoon that you've been living in of your parents, of your relatives, of your friends. You go to a completely new environment. Sorry about that. You go to a completely new environment, meet new people, do things very differently, and you don't have the safety cushion or the safety net of your parents being there to protect you, of your relatives being there, right? So you become truly independent, and that increases your confidence level a lot, right? The kind of challenges that you face when you study abroad, once you're done with it, you're ready to face any challenge in life, and all big challenges will look very small because of the experiences you'll have. So again, I always tell my students that the value of degree, the career opportunities are one thing, but 110% thing that will happen when you study abroad is a 24/7 self-development workshop, right? So one thing you will definitely come back with is a lot of confidence, if nothing else. Right, next. You get to travel the world. You can make the world your classroom. I have students who literally go to a new country every month, go to exotic locations. They explore the world, take lovely again selfies, and post it all across their Insta stories. So yeah, you get to travel. So you're one step closer to the dream of traveling. I hope after pandemic now everybody can start traveling again and things can go back to normal. Next. Right, let's try and look at some of the myths of studying abroad. A lot of times students assume or have certain misconceptions about studying abroad, which stops them from taking that step. So I want to put it out there, and I want to clarify that it's, these challenges or these barriers you think that exist in studying abroad are not the case. It's not the case, right? A lot of people believe it's very, very expensive. So again, you'll be surprised. It's not as expensive as you think. Devendra, can you just move to the amount? Can you show the amount? Right. So there are courses starting from as low as 9 lakh rupees per annum. right? 9 to 10 lakh rupees. There are a lot of country options that are available. Pooja, we'll answer your questions towards the end. Yeah, you can raise your hand, but we'll answer your question towards the end. So there are a lot of courses that are available starting from 9 to 10 lakhs per annum. So it's not as expensive as you think it is. So don't restrict yourself thinking that, oh, it's very expensive, it's not for me. Right? Don't restrict yourself. Also, there are education loans available. You can take an education loan for the entire tuition fees, entire living expenses, and you can repay the loan once you start working there. Right? So even if your parents are not able to afford the fees, you can always take an education loan. Education loans are available up to 25 lakh rupees from government banks, right? Even private banks have started giving education loans. So if you don't have access to funds, you can always take a loan as well. Also, do bear in mind that students who study abroad, they can work part-time. So you can work part-time and fulfill your living expenses very, very easily. And it's something we highly recommend. If you work part-time, you'll be able to manage your living expenses. So technically, the only investment you make on your studies is your tuition fees, right? So if you can afford the tuition fees, living expenses, something you can easily take care on your own. Next. It's only for brilliant students like this guy here. Right? That's again not the case. It's a common misconception. Like I said, the admission process for foreign universities is not as competitive as it is for Indian universities. And the primary reason for this is there is no gap in demand and supply, right? There are ample of universities and lesser number of students, whereas in India, it's the other way around. Limited number of universities, and we all know our population, right? So it's not for brilliant students. Even if you're an above average student scoring anywhere between 55 to 75%, you can genuinely target some very good universities. And if you're a Pune University student, the degree you're holding is Pune University. It's a tier 1 university. So again, the entry requirements for Pune universities are slightly more relaxed compared to some of the other universities in India. Right, moving on. There are no scholarships. Again, a lot of students believe there are no scholarships for international students. That's not the case. There are scholarships available from the range of 10% of your tuition fees, going up to 50% of your tuition fees. So that cost can further be reduced if you qualify for scholarships. Obviously, this is for very, very brilliant students, merit-based students, because it's a competitive process. So not every student can get scholarship. But yes, if you're a good student, you have a good academic standing, you can definitely try for scholarships. Next. It's very, very difficult. A lot of people go, "Arey, bahar jana hai, itne sare universities hai, itne sare countries hai, itna confusion hai, lamba process hoga, visa, accommodation." There's so many confusion students they have. So they think it's very, very difficult. Actually, the process is not very difficult. It can be broken down into simple steps. Choose a country, choose a university, apply, get your visa and fly out. That's how simple it is. And the entire process can be completed in a period of 2 to 3 months, right? So it's not as difficult and complex as you think it is. And obviously, if you have the right guidance of a good consultant like ourselves, then we can make the process even easier for you. Next. Right, what are the top countries where students choose to study abroad? UK, Ireland have always been top destinations. USA has been a top destination. More recently, we've seen destinations like New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and Singapore emerge. Right, and like you see, the budget varies. So US remains the most expensive place to study a master's, and normally when Indians think of studying abroad, the first country that comes to their mind is US. And because they think, oh, US ke liye to 50 lakh rupiya lagta hai masters ke liye, they step back saying, no, not for us, right? But there are a lot of other countries which are very, very reasonable and that can be considered. Like UK and Ireland offer a 1-year masters, so you save time, you save money. So it's a very, very reasonable option in that sense. And even Canada and New Zealand are on the reasonable side, right? So yeah, specific questions about GRE can be answered at a later stage, guys. Yeah, right. Moving on. What are the top countries for pharma students in particular, right? And what are the different kind of companies that are operating in these countries? So Ireland is one of the top choices for pharma students. Ireland has been very, very big on pharmacy, on medical equipments, and they're very, very research based. So a lot of research students again prefer going to Ireland as a destination, and you can see that it's also home to some of the top pharma companies in the world. USA has always been a front runner again in pharma, so again it's a popular place to study pharma related courses. UK again, especially off late, since they were the first ones to get the vaccine out, again has always been a popular destination for students who want to study pharma. And some of the top companies, I mean, AstraZeneca is, as of today, hopefully getting become one of the biggest companies because of the vaccine that is going around. Canada also has quite a few pharma companies, though I would keep it the lowest in terms of the priority. It has limited scope, but it still does have scope compared to some of the other countries. Right, moving on. Devendra, can we move to the next slide?
Yes, sir. I'm not able.
Right. So what are the career opportunities if you choose to study abroad? You get to enhance your CV. You have a competitive advantage on your CV. You know more than what students in India know because you're studying the latest curriculum. You're studying on latest technology, doing latest research. A lot of universities abroad offer work placement courses. So they could come along with an internship or a work placement. So again, that gives you good exposure and you can gain valuable work experience and make some good money as well. You get to work with Fortune 500 companies. You saw the names. You can get to work with some of the best pharma companies in the world. Normally, we've seen graduate salaries starting from $30,000 onwards per annum, right? So you would start with a package of at least 15 to 18 lakhs, depending on which country you're in. It can even go as high as 30, 35 lakhs per annum. We've seen a lot of good performing graduates grab those kind of opportunities. And you'd also get an opportunity to settle abroad. So a lot of times when you go to study in a country, you get a work permit, and after working there for a few years, you can apply for a permanent residency. So it can become a route to settle in that country as well. Though I'm not a big fan of that. I believe every student should go there, study for a few years, work for a few years, gain some experience, and come back and contribute in the growth of our country. But yeah, it's a personal choice. We do have a lot of students who have been successfully able to get their PR and settle down in the country after working there for a few years. Moving on. Right, what are some of the exams that you need to give? I think some of you are already aware of this. IELTS, TOEFL, Pearson, these are some of the language exams that you need to give in order to study abroad. Apart from that, there are some countries that require a competitive or an aptitude test like a GRE or a GMAT. Do bear in mind that GRE is only required for the US. No other country requires GRE. So a lot of times students are scared of GRE. They say, "Bahut time lagega preparation karne ke liye." Sometimes they don't score well, and they again feel ki okay, GRE nahi aaya, so nothing can happen. So again, US is the only country that requires GRE. Countries like UK, Ireland, some of the universities in Canada, New Zealand, Australia, all these countries do not require a GRE score. The admission can happen on the basis of your bachelor's degree and the score you have in your bachelor's, right? And also IELTS is important. IELTS is a more popular form of English language exam. So IELTS is mandatory for almost every country. So IELTS is something you'll need to give, but GRE is not mandatory. Right, moving on. What is the requirements or what are the things the universities look at when giving you an admission? They majorly look at your percentage in 10th, 12th, and your bachelor's, so how your scores have been. You need to have pass marks, so you need to pass the IELTS or PTE exam, which are English language tests. Like I said, SATs and GREs are only required for the US. Other countries do not require any other entrance exam. Recommendation letters play a very important role. So 2 good recommendation letters from your 2 professors are required for every country. And they play a very important role in your admission process. Similarly, statement of purpose, which is an essay you need to write for your admissions, is again very, very important. And you have to write a good essay to be considered by the university. So they give a lot of importance to these 2 aspects for the admission. And obviously your extracurricular activities like sports, internships, any short courses you've taken, any voluntary work you've done, all these things also play a very, very important role on your admissions, right? So I would say about 20 to 30% of your admission depends on the softer aspects of your application, so your SOP, your LOR, your extracurriculars, and about 70% of weightage is given to your academics, which is your bachelor's score and your 12th and 10th score. Right, moving on. Right, how can StudySmart help you? What can we do for you? Right, so firstly, what we would do is do an in-depth counseling session with you to understand what your background is, to understand what your academics are, to what your financials are, and then understand what your career goals are. What do you want to achieve? Depending on your academic profile, depending on your overall profile and your career objectives, we will suggest what are the countries that will fulfill these career objectives for you, right? So we help you selecting in the right country. Then we also help you select courses, right? So we'll give you a variety of universities that you can apply for. We normally give you at least 8 to 10 recommendations, right? And we try to focus more on career-oriented courses, courses which will ensure that you get a good job after you finish your program. So we've mapped our courses to the skill shortage areas of countries. And accordingly, we suggest courses where your chances of getting a job are much, much higher, because at the end of the day, we all want that job, right? Agar job nahi mila to fayda kya jaake, right? So we suggest courses, universities, countries. Once you decide, okay, this is the country I want to go for, this is the university I want to apply for, we recommend to apply for at least 3 to 4 universities, right? Then once you start the applications, we take care of the entire application process, the communication with the universities, giving you SOP samples, LOR samples. We have our own editors. So we get the SOP edited to a level of what the university wants to see. We have a specialized scholarship division that helps you with scholarships. We provide help with education loan as well. We have ties with various banks like HDFC, Bank of Baroda, ICICI. So we guide you with the education loan process as well. Once you finish the entire process, we help you with the visa process also, the form filling, taking the appointment, right? A lot of embassies conduct an interview with the student before granting you a visa. So we again prepare you for the visas, the visa interview. Normally, we would do at least 3 mock interviews with every student before they go for the actual interview. So again, the interview plays a very critical role in you getting the visa, right? And then once you get the visa, we'll help you with your flight tickets, currency, packing list, what to take, what not to take. You have a proper pre-departure briefing where we'll connect you to other students that are going. So it's a proper hand-holding that happens. Once you reach there also, we'll help you with accommodation. Through our network, we'll help you with part-time jobs, right? So the support continues till the time you don't reach there and till the time you don't kind of settle down. We also provide IELTS training, right? And right now we're providing that online with DY Patil. We've had a long-standing relationship and we've trained a lot of their students in the past. And we offer special subsidized rates for DY Patil students on the training as well, right? So obviously when you speak to our counselors, they'll be able to give you more information about that. Right, moving on to the next slide. Right, so DY Patil has also done an MOU with Griffith College. It is one of the best colleges in Ireland, especially for pharma courses, right? And these are some of the courses that Griffith College offers. So there is a slight scholarship that is available for DY Patil students when they apply to Griffith College. Where other students apply, they don't get the scholarship, right? So it's an MOU that's happened with DY Patil University. We played an important role in getting that MOU done. So all of you who are looking to study in Ireland, this is one of the colleges you should give consideration to because it's really, really good. And their courses are very reasonable, especially after the scholarship you get for being a DPU student. Next. Right, here are some of our alumni who have gone on to do really good things. We've placed over 5,000 students in the last 10 years that we've been in this business. Obviously, I cannot list so many students here, but we've just listed a few students to give you an idea of what kind of career opportunities they've had once they've studied abroad. Obviously, it's a variety of courses that students go for. Recently, we've had a lot of pharma students who've gone to countries like UK, Ireland, and they've done really, really well. They've all got placed in very, very good companies. A few students from DY Patil itself. We had a lot of students from JSPM Pharma, students from there, So yeah, they've done really, really well for themselves. So very rarely you'll see students going abroad and coming back as failures. They would normally come back achieving great things. Right, moving on. So our offices are here. Our Pune office is opposite Wadia College, very centrally located. So you are always welcome to come into our offices. Obviously, right now, our offices are not operational because of the lockdown. But once we are open, you can do that. We do provide virtual counseling. So we do provide virtual counseling for our students. So if you want to book a virtual counseling session, you can call on the numbers that have been given here. And you can book a session for yourself. We will be doing some counseling sessions after this seminar also. So obviously those of you who want one-to-one counseling can stay back. We have a team of 2-3 counselors who have already joined in, and they will take you into breakout rooms and do your one-to-one counseling there. Right. So yeah, that's pretty much it from my side. So if you're looking to study abroad, I genuinely believe it's a life-changing experience. So you should consider it. If you have the affordability, if not, you can always go for a loan. And if you need guidance, you can get in touch with us. Our counselors will be more than happy to help you. Once campuses reopen, we are happy to come down to your campus also to do counseling sessions. We've done that in the past, right? So yeah, if you have any questions, you can post it on the chat. Devendra, if you can please read out the questions to me, I'll answer those questions one by one.
Yes, sir. One question is, sir, if we score 310 in GRE, is there any chance of getting scholarship?
Yeah, what's the name of the person who asked the question?
Pranita.
Yeah, so Pranita, 310 is a decent score. I would say target 320 and above. That would give you good opportunities for scholarships. So 320 plus on GRE would be a good score. You can then target scholarships ranging from 20% to about 40% of your tuition fees.
Pratik has a question, sir. Can you elaborate on return of investment and work opportunities for graduates simultaneously with masters?
Oh, great question, Pratik. So yeah, firstly, let's answer the second part of your question about work opportunities. All students, like I said, can work 20 hours a week during their term time, barring US. US is the only country that does not allow you to work. You can only work on campus. But all the other countries, you're allowed to work 20 hours a week off campus, on campus, doesn't matter. During your semester breaks, you're allowed to work full time, that is 40 hours, right? So if you work part-time, you can easily take care of your food, travel, accommodation, all your living expenses very comfortably, right? You'll earn the minimum wage also, you'll still manage to take care of these expenses. The kind of jobs you typically get are very casual jobs, obviously. You could be working in a restaurant, you could be working in a retail store, a cricket stadium, football stadium, shopping malls, right? These are casual weekend or evening jobs is what students normally get. But they're a lot of fun and you get to learn a lot and you get to make good money. So I have students who make anywhere between say if I take UK's example, 1,000 to 1,500 pounds every month, and they cover their living expenses. In Ireland, they would make anywhere between 900 to 1,100 euros. So enough opportunities to work part-time and get enough jobs. With regards to the return on investment, I personally believe that currently Ireland and UK are offering very good return on investment because they both offer 1-year masters. So your investment is half, right? At best, you'll be spending anywhere between 12 lakhs going up to 18 lakhs, depending on the university for a master's in these two countries. And once you finish your course, you get a 2-year stay back. You get 2 years of post-study work visa. So when you start working, you start with a salary of 25 to 30 lakhs in these countries, right? So you can do the maths. Within the first year, you would recover your tuition fees, and second year, you would be in profit, right? So the return on investment in these two countries is good because they offer a 1-year masters. Most other countries like US, Australia, Canada, it's a 2 years masters. So the return on investment is good, but it takes longer to recover your investment because it's a 2 years master. So the cost doubles. Like a US will cost you 50, 60 lakhs. So it'll take you at least 5-6 years to kind of recover your investment. Similar to Canada will go up to around 30 lakhs. So again, the investment is doubling there.
Yes, sir. Next
Right.
question from Sharvari. How can we be prepared for foreign education?
I think you're already prepared. You're doing an undergrad program. So there's no special preparation that's required. Yes, guidance is required and counseling is required, which is what we are here for. So if you connect with our counselors, we're able to give you a roadmap on how you can go about doing the entire process. And yes, we'll give you some tips and suggestions on how you can prepare yourself before you go, right? So it could be taking some English classes to brush up your English. It could be something like taking some computer classes to brush up your basic computer skills, starting to learn a little about their culture. So we'll suggest some movies to you, some series to you where you can, watch that and start learning about their culture. So yeah, these are the basic things that are required for preparation.
Next question is from Anmol. Has COVID impacted the job opportunities for international students?
Oh, of course it has. Over the last 1.5, 2 years, we've seen a slowdown, but not in your sector, right? Pharma sector is a sector that has been growing tremendously, right? So I would say the pharma sector is a complete exception to what's happened during the COVID for the other industries and other sectors. But in general, most of these Western countries have done a very good job in tackling COVID, right? Especially the second wave. To give you an example, US has the second highest number of vaccinations that have been done. In June, they're going mask free, right? So, their economy is already reviving, I would say. UK, for example, has vaccinated 85% of their population, right? And again, they've already, life is back to normal. Restaurants are open, malls are open. Tourism has again started picking up. They're allowing tourism from Europe to come in, right? Australia, New Zealand have fared really well during the lockdown. So most of these countries are already on a revival. If you go now in the September intake or the next year intake, by the time you get to the job market, is going to be 2 to 3 years from now. So I think the opportunities would be very, very good. And especially for the pharma sector, guys, you know what's happening, right? You guys are, people who are in pharma and medical are making money like they've never made before. So I don't think you'll have any shortage on opportunities, and especially in these countries, because the focus on healthcare is tremendous right now. And they are very short-staffed, by the way. The entire healthcare sector is very short-staffed. Right, next question, Devendra.
Srishti has a question. We have not able to do an internship or gain any experience in past year. How can we make sure this doesn't lead to rejection of our application?
Yeah, so it won't lead to a rejection, to be honest. Like I said, it's just 10 to 20% or 30% weightage is given to various aspects of your extracurricular. So internship is a very small part of it. You can always try to take some short online courses to compensate for that, right? But as such, it does not guarantee a rejection. If your academic profile is good, you will still stand a very, very, very good chance to get accepted in a good university. So don't worry about it too much. I won't sweat over it. And again, our expertise is in highlighting the positives of your application. So when we apply, our aim is to increase your chances of getting accepted, because we manipulate your profile to put it in a very positive light in front of the university. So that's where our expertise comes in, because we've been dealing with these universities for years. So we know exactly what they want to see on a student's application. Next question, Devendra.
Next question is from Shweta. They say strong profile is needed to get selected in better universities. So how should one prepare for same?
Sorry, repeat that. I didn't quite understand that question.
They say strong profile is needed to get selected in better universities. So how should one prepare for the same?
Yeah, so like I said, it's strong. Your major profile is your academic profile, which you can only study well and focus more on your studies and improve, right? So your 12 standard marks and your undergrad marks play a very important role. If you're going for a master's, if you're going for an undergrad program, then your 12 standard marks play an important role. So a lot of focus is on your academic profile. Other than that, you can build your profile by taking on extracurricular activities, right? So take up short courses on Udemy, Coursera, try and take up some internships, even if they're virtual internships, no problem. Try and do some good work, like voluntary work, maybe a blood donation drive, maybe in COVID time, some COVID relief activities, right? So again, you can put on your profile that you've been doing extracurricular activities. So yeah, these small things can be done to build your profile, but majorly it again depends on your academic profile. Next question.
Next question is from Pratik. Sir, does publishing review papers or doing industrial training help us in enhancing our application to study abroad? And what are other things we can do to enhance the application?
Yeah, I think I've given the answers for this already. What are the different things you can do to enhance your application? But publications is something which is a good point, because a lot of pharmacy is a research-oriented subject, right? So if your research has got published, it does add a lot of value to your application. So if you're publishing articles, you're publishing research, that will go a long way on your application. So that's another advice that I can give to all the pharma students, that try and get some publications out there. So that will help you a great deal.
Next question is from Harshita. When is the correct time to prepare for education abroad?
There is no correct time as such, but yeah, immediately after you finish your bachelor's, you should look at going for a master's program. So say the right time to approach us and start preparing for the process in terms of applications, choosing the university, taking a counseling, would be when you enter your last year, right? So say students who are now currently in their final year, you should be starting immediately, or you're a little late, I would say, but yeah, there is still enough time for you to apply and go for the September 21 intake. So September 21 intake is still open. So students who are in the currently in your final year can still apply for universities. Students who are in their fourth year, right? I believe pharma is a 5-year program. Of students who are in their last year.
It's a 4-year program.
4-year program, yeah. So students who are in the third year, you should ideally approach us sometime in September or October, so that you can start preparing for the next year, which is September 22 intake. Right. So normally we suggest starting 1 year in advance. Like if you're going to graduate in September 22, you should start by October 21 to start preparing for your plans of studying abroad.
The next question is from Aditi. Sir, is it Pharma D student are preferred over the B Pharma or M Pharma student to be professional in abroad, as Pharma D is the professional course that's mostly present in most of the abroad countries?
Yeah, so no, as such, it doesn't matter. What plays a role is your undergrad program and what kind of subjects you've studied. So the course titles, which are very common and weird in India, the course titles don't play a role. So you could go for a master's program either which ways. Your marks will matter, your course curriculum will matter. So yeah, you don't have any restrictions. You can explore whichever course you want.
Next question is from Shivani. Your guidance is only for master program or for PhD as well?
So our guidance is predominantly for master's program. PhD applications abroad are very, very difficult and very, very time consuming. So on case-to-case basis, we could take on PhD cases or help PhD students as well. But we always recommend that even if you have a master's here, go do another master's there, then apply for the PhD. It becomes a lot easier because then you get grants. If you apply as an international student for PhD, you don't get grants. But if you do a master's in the university and then apply for a PhD program there, you could get a grant where your entire PhD program could be free of cost. Or in fact, you could even earn a stipend, right? So that does not happen when you apply as an international student, but when you apply after a master's in that country, then the PhD process is much easier and also less expensive because you're getting a grant. Next
question is from Payal. What is the importance of statement of purpose and letter of recommendation?
It is very important, like I told you, that it plays a very important role in your overall application, because that is your opportunity to explain yourself to the admissions team, right? So you're writing why you deserve to get accepted on this program, what your career objectives are, how you'll add value to their class. Right, so it plays an important role, and that's where again our expertise come in. We will give you samples for the recommendation letters. Fortunately, we've been working with DPU for a long time, so they are aware of what the requirements are, and they have a very good sample themselves of the recommendation letter. For SOP also, we get our students to write a basic SOP, and then our editors will enhance it. Our editors again have years of experience, right? So they'll enhance the SOP to take it to the level of what the university wants to see. So don't worry about it. We have you covered here. So, if you're worried about SOP and LOR, don't worry about it. We'll make sure yours is top notch.
Next question is from Shavari. We have plans if we are selected in any university, but how to go ahead if we receive a rejection letter?
That's So again, it depends on your profile, right? So when you discuss your profile with us, our counselors will tell you what are your chances of getting through. And that's why we get you to apply for 3 to 4 universities. So there is some kind of a fallback available. And when we suggest universities, we'll suggest universities on the basis of your profile, only when we are confident, yes, you can get through. So I would not worry about rejections too much. Again, that's where our expertise comes in. We will get you there if you want to go there.
Next question is, sir, can you elaborate more about European countries like Sweden, Norway, and Germany, and do you provide assistance for this country as well?
Yes, of course, we help with every and any country, though predominantly our students go to English-speaking countries. Personally, I don't recommend non-English-speaking countries as a thumb rule. The reason for that is that language is a huge barrier. So we do send a lot of students to Germany, particularly for engineering courses, auto engineering and mechanical engineering. But all these students, right, they take up at least 3 to 4 years of language studies before they go there. So they study German language, they get themselves up to a B2 level of German language, and then they apply for the universities. A lot of European universities will expect you to have basic level of language as well. So if you're targeting any European countries in particular, you should study language and then go there. Otherwise, do not go there. Stick to English-speaking countries, because language will post a lot of problems. I'll give you a simple example. If you ever go to South India, you go to Kerala, you only speak Hindi, you don't speak English or Malayalam, you can't survive in that state, right? Similarly, if you go abroad, and you don't go to a European country, say Germany or Sweden, and you don't speak the local language, they don't speak English. English is not a language there, right? So you will struggle. So hence, stick to English-speaking countries, because in non-English-speaking countries, part-time jobs will be a problem, full-time jobs will be a problem. Next.
Next question is from Manali. Sir, can you please tell a little about scholarships? Are they based on any general exam like GRE? And
So,
except USA, any other generalized exam we need to appear for?
Yeah, so only in US, your scholarships are based on your academic profile and GRE. So GRE plays a role in how much scholarship you'll get for US universities. In other countries, it's based on your profile. So your academics, your merit base, how much marks you have, and a scholarship application goes in, where you again have to write an essay explaining why you deserve the scholarship. So like I said, scholarships are ranging from 10% to 50%, but they're genuinely difficult, right? Many consultants will tell you, oh, hum scholarship kara lenge, mil jayega scholarship. No, it is genuinely difficult. And realistically, 10-20% is easy to get, but anything beyond that is normally very difficult. So if I was in your shoes, I would say, I would plan thinking that I'm not going to get a scholarship. I'll do my financial planning, assuming I'm not going to get a scholarship. And if I get a scholarship, it becomes a bonus. Next, Devendra.
Next question. Is master in degree in genetics a good career option? And economics?
Yeah, I think genetics is playing a very, very important role more recently in how things are moving, especially in the pharma sector, the healthcare sector. So I think genetics will have a lot of scope. It's a very niche area again. You may have to check your eligibility, because normally for a program in genetics, a biotech background is required. So you may have to check the eligibility. But yeah, overall, I think genetics would have tremendous scope.
Next question is from Pratik. What are the best pharmacy courses for masters?
There are lots of courses, like we showed in the slide, right? There are over 10 specializations we listed, but there are many specializations. Very hard to say off my head what is the best course for that. Again, it depends on your profile. It depends on your career objectives, what you want to achieve, what your goals are. If your goals are research, then go for a research-based program. If your goal is to get a good job, then go for a more taught program. If you want to start your own business in the pharmacy sector, then go for a pharma business program, right? So it will depend on the objectives. So Pratik, once you take a counseling session with us, once you we understand your profile, our counselors will be in a better position to suggest courses to you. Very hard to say just like that. So yeah, I read this question is pharma economics. It's not pharma economics, it's pharma business. Yeah, it's a booming course, I would say. It's become a very popular course with pharma students, because pharma is a 4-year program. So you already learn all the technical things you need to learn during your undergrad. So doing a business program adds another skill set to you, making you very employable, and you can move to the business side of pharma rather than the technical side. So yeah, I've seen a lot of popularity in that particular sector, and it's a good program to take up.
Sir, I would just like to add here, there is a course on pharmacoeconomics also. And yeah, it also deals with the business part, because in India, we have that course. So maybe it has a different name outside India.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. So the title is different, but yeah, I think
yes,
the objective of the program is same.
Yes, yes.
That's it, sir. No more questions.
Great. So we'll give, okay, there's one last question.
If I select a place like UK or Ireland, what should be the approx amount I will have to spend, including the living expenses?
Yeah, so for UK and Ireland, depending on the university, the tuition fees would be in the range of 10 lakhs going up to about 16-17 lakhs. So that's the amount you'll spend on the tuition fees. Living expenses for both the countries is around 10 lakhs, right? But like I said, living expenses you can make on your own. You can work part-time and cover your own living expenses. So in reality, the investment you're making is only your tuition fees and say a little more on top. So I feel UK, Ireland, both are very good budget options. And there are, I mean, in the low budget, you can target to go there. And genuinely have a good shot of having a good career, because you get 2 years of work permit, and after 2 years also there is an extension of 5 years possible, right? So from a return on investment, I rate these two countries very, very good right now. Right. I'll take one last question before we end the session and we move to the counseling part. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer. One last question I'm happy to take.